Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very, very accomplished professional from New Delhi, India, Professor Shalini Verma. Shalini, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Professor Verma is an authorpreneur and co-founder of Books 33 and SamvaadShaalaa. She's an author of 75 books. So, Shalini, let's talk about your amazing journey. It's been very interesting. Please share some of your key highlights.
Well, if I have to speak about the key highlights, I would like to speak about the 4 decades. The 70s, I am 70 born, 1970 born. So the 70s, the 1980s, the 1990s, and the 2020s onwards till now. So born in 1970 to a family, a joint family in a state of Bihar. I hail from Bihar, and my native place is Champaran, the land of Satyagraha.
Correct.
I take pride of that. 70s was a kind of Cinderella story, like 1970s, everything going on fine, and I'm born and brought. I'm the only child, loved and pampered by everyone in the family. And 1979 comes, and then there is a whole world change. My father, 1979, he passed away. I was 9. And I have seen the world change.
Correct.
How the world changed. So at my side, I have a mom of 32 years old, a widow in a state of Bihar. You can understand what kind of stereotypical thoughts that they have. And she chooses not to remarry and to bring me up.
Correct.
And the second blow comes. This was the first.
The
jolt that I faced. That was the first jolt that I got at the age of 9. And then we are thrown out of our house.
Wow.
By my grandparents. And then we see the real world. So, when you are in the protection of your family and you are inside your well-off family, everyone looks up to you, and then all of a sudden you are thrown out of your comfort. You become very vulnerable.
Absolutely.
So that happened to me and my mom. And then the struggle starts. And it happened and happened and happened until 80s. 80s was a very turbulent year for both of us. The first jolt was followed by the second jolt and the third jolt. And I had some very unpleasant experience, such as molestation and rape. And the society decided to marry me off with the person who was a wrongdoer to me.
Wow.
So I get married at the age of 13 to the person who has ruined my life in the name of the social justice. Because the person has done wrong to me, so now he'll have to take care of me.
And you said you were only 13.
I was 13.
Okay.
So I'm talking of back in 80s. This 80s was not very, has not been kind to me.
Sure.
Then it was the decision of the society, where I come from a place where the society takes the decision on behalf of an individual. So you don't have any say.
Yeah.
And my mom was very strong, but then she could not fight back the societal norms of that time. So I'm getting married. And then in 94, I am giving birth to my first child. And then I give birth to my second child. And I lose my second baby in my lap. The biggest thing that happened to me was like, okay, I was a bad mom. This is the feeling that I felt, that I could not, because a mom is the one who will always save the child, right? So I could not save her, and that changed my life.
Okay.
I was just to matriculate when I got married off. I was made to get married at which was a child marriage, of course. Then my education was stopped, because how could I? Then when I lost my second child, I started my studies again. So that was a turning point. And then things started changing on the educational front, but the domestic front was as bad as it could be, from being beaten back and blue. And I when I look back and I see, I feel that I've seen everything. I've seen everything. And that is the reason I feel I'm blessed. I've seen the darkest of the world. I have seen the brightest of the world. So 80s has shown me the different flavor. Then comes the 90s. 1990s, things started changing. So the things, there is a limit to everything. So when you reach to that, then it starts, the wheel of the destiny starts changing, or your karma starts changing. 90s comes, and it comes good to me, to the world, to India. Opening up happens, globalization happens, and so my world also changes. I migrate from Bihar, from Champaran to Nepal, in search of livelihood, of course, and I get one. Couple of places I worked. I started my career as a receptionist in a DAV school. They had a Nepal branch. I started there. That was my first job. Worked there for some time. Then by that time I graduated with English honors. Then I got a job of a school teacher in a Nepali school, in a school in Nepal. I was stationed at Birganj, which is Tarai Kshetra, Tarai region of Nepal, which is the border of our India Bihar border. So I get a job. I studied. I start teaching, and then gradually I start. I got that entrepreneurial bug. I was bitten by that entrepreneurial bug. I start my own institute called A to Z Language Institute, Language and Tutorial Institutes, where we used to train people who used to go out of the country, and they used to write TOEFL and IELTS. So it was again, things had started changing, and then 2001 happened. That royal family massacre happened, and the political turbulence there, and a lot of bunds happening every time, that made us come back. So it was a reverse migration. So in 2002 we came back to India, to Delhi. And from that time onwards till now, there has been, the blacks and the whites, the darks and the brights are taking turns. So this is my story.
What an amazing story of grit and determination. Thank you, Shalini, for sharing it with me and all our viewers. But, what has given you the strength to be able to share such an amazing personal story on an open platform?
Okay. See, what has happened to me is the courage has come with time. There was a time when I used to get beaten black and blue. I used to say, no, I had fallen down. I hurt myself. Okay, so you have a blue mark here, the bruises here, how it happened. You know what? I was in hurry and I fell down off the bed. So this was a self-denial kind of thing. So that happened. And over the time, time and again and again and again. So I reached to the point like, no, now let me be truthful to myself. Who am I lying to? People who are asking, some of them will laugh, some of them might sympathize, but then who am I lying to? Come on. So that happened. And I gradually started opening up. I put an end to that bad marriage. And putting an end to bad marriage doesn't mean that I don't have right to live.
Correct.
I don't have right to be loved just because I'm married with 2 kids. And by the way, after I lost my second baby, I had my third baby also, and she is a daughter. So then I put an end to it. I decided, decision making is the biggest challenge that I faced. Always in a dilemma, whether I'll be able to break the social taboo. Back then, divorcee, the status of divorcee is a big thing. I mean, people would not accept it. But there has to be an end for every evil thing.
Absolutely.
Right? Absolutely. So I decided to put an end, filed a case, filed a divorce case. And the person was so guilty that he didn't even appear in the case even once. So I got the degree, the ex parte degree.
Okay.
So when you're wrongdoer, you don't have you do wrong only until you know that the other person will hide it. The moment the other person, you know that the other person will reveal the things that you are doing to her, that person will disappear. So that happened to me.
Absolutely. But now, looking at life ahead, you also call yourself a Lifoholic, Shalini, drinking life sip by sip. Very powerful set of words. Help me understand what is the thinking behind this phrase, and do give me an example.
Sure. Let me tell you that the day I decided that now no more, I'll put an end to all these things that have been happening to me. Life cannot treat me like that. Come on, I'm a good person. I'm doing my good karma. So why should I not get what I deserve? I'm not asking for anything more. So what happened? I started breaking the taboos, the stereotypes, types. I got remarried with a very, I don't have any word for him. A person who's accepted me as I am, with my 2 kids, with my mood swings, with all the bruises that I had in my past life. So I got remarried. And then that was breaking the first stereotype that a lady with 2 kids, a divorcee, cannot get married. I got married and I flaunt it even now.
Absolutely.
So I have made it a point. My hair have become from black to gray, but something that sindoor that I take the pride of, that remains. I travel to Europe, I travel to US, I travel to different countries, but my sindoor is my trademark.
Fantastic.
So I take pride in that. So in what happened in 2017, that there were 2 stereotypes that I broke. The first was Kanyadan.
Absolutely.
My daughter got married, and I mean, my family, I had to convince my family for that. We said that we will not do Kanyadan. We believe more in, because India has been a land of, accommodating. We don't believe in parting.
Correct.
So she's not a commodity that her bonds are cut off today. Correct. And that goes to the other person's family. So we would be accommodative. You accommodate my daughter and we accommodate your son. So it was not easy. So we broke that.
Wonderful. How wonderful.
The second stereotype I broke was, we will not do Vidai. What is Vidai? I mean, you had such a gala event and you are marrying off your daughter and your only daughter. I was not married the way I should have been. So it was a dream come true. So why after such a gala time there has to be tears and everyone is crying? Why that parting thing? I said no, Vidai. So this was a little difficult for the groom's family to digest. So what I did was I told them, okay, the bride and the groom would not go to your place. They would not remain here. They would go to Mata Ka Darshan. They would go to Vaishnav Devi. They would take the blessings from Mata Ka Darshan and then they will come back and whatever rituals are there.
Yeah.
So these are the two things I broke.
Amazing.
All these things happened in 2017 from February till June, something like that. And later on, in October, I had again that, I told you that the darkest and the brightest. The brightest was over now. The darkest time came when I realized that I have to live without my mom. Because when a child is born, he or she sees the mom. And we somehow believe that they are eternal, they are extension of you. Not even in your wildest dream it comes that one day that person is going to say bye to you and you have to live without her.
Correct.
So that was a jolt to me because all my days she had stood as a rock behind me. Because of her, I could fight back my bad marriage and started living again. Now, all of a sudden, she is not there. She's not around. And then I started celebrating my DNA, the DNA that my parents have given me. And I started feeling my parents inside me. So that celebration of DNA, the perseverance of Bihar, and the passion of Bengal. My mom was a Bengali. So that started living inside. And then I started sipping the life, sip by sip.
Fantastic.
And I gave myself Lifoholic. Now I am totally, okay with everything that may come in my life. That is a story of
what a powerful story you have. I mean, I'm sure my viewers and listeners will really listen to every single word that you have told me, because as I'm listening to you, I mean, I'm amazed at how much you have endured and how well you've come out. But now moving on, tell me a little bit about books 33 and SamvaadShaalaa. And you also say that you have a keen ability to read body language. So I'm sure there is some, from what I've learned from you now, there is always something connected in your life. So tell me about your books, book 33, SamvaadShaalaa.
So shall I start with body language and then come to books and 33 and SamvaadShaalaa?
Certainly.
Yeah. So books 33, my passion, my inclination towards this field happened because during the darkest period of my life, I would see people changing and their words would not change, but their words would remain same, but their actions would change, their behavior would change. But then the words would be as goody as possible. So I started, I was kind of surprised why there is a disparity. What you are saying and what you are doing, there is a great disparity.
Yeah.
And then I started reading body language of people. When they are saying, okay, beta, I am with you by patting on my shoulder, I tried to see that touch was a good touch or a bad touch. And then I would see into their eyes and see, is there a genuine compassion coming out, or is there something that
some other motive?
Some other motive. So I started reading that. So when I graduated in English honors and I took my MA English literature, I took as a specialized subject subconscious mind reading.
Okay.
And I did my thesis on Sylvia Plath. A study of Sylvia Plath, A Confession as an Art. In that study, I delved more into subconscious. What is going in your subconscious and how it gets reflected in your words and your action. So a lot of research went into that. And because I had felt that, I had seen that, I could give my heart and soul to it.
Right.
So that helped me, that research, after getting my degree awarded in 2002, 2002, 2002, when I got my degree, my doctorate awarded, then I thought of writing a book on body language. I wrote it and got rejected and rejected and rejected. So it took me 14 long years. 40 long years to publish my first book.
Amazing.
So, but then I come from a land of Satyagraha, and the perseverance of my DNA was not allowing me to say no to it. Because I kept on trying, and that those were the days where self-publishing was not heard of.
Correct.
Either it was a ghost writing, vanity writing, or it was a traditional writing. So when you go for the traditional writing, you go with your synopsis, manuscript, few chapters, go to your publishers, and they will either like it, not like it.
Correct.
So for me, the latter was true. So they didn't like it. So ultimately, one of the publishers where I worked as editor, they liked my idea. And my first book got published, Body Language, Your Success Mantra. So that was back in 2005. And it was the book release happened by late Srimati Sheila Dikshit. Back then in 2005, she was the Chief Minister of Delhi. And then what happened, I started writing, and that was an instant hit. And because it was a hit, it spread in the publishing industry. So the publishers would commission me to write. So you write for this topic, you write for that topic, you are a communication professor, and blah, 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 whatever happened. So I started writing. So because I had written so much, and I was kind of, getting the benefits of the royalty, I started living on the royalties of those books. So teaching and professorship became secondary, and writing became my primary livelihood. So, but then they both went together. 2005, I got an opportunity to work for Ohio University as a communication professor, just because of that book, that Body Language, Your Success Mantra, because AACSB accredited management institutes give a lot of weightage to the book publishing. And because it was so niche, back then when I had written Body Language from the Indian perspective. I had spoken about Namaskar, I had spoken about anticipation gesture, which is seen in Mahabharat, when Shakuni used to anticipate and throw his dice, whatever he wished would come true. So all these things fascinated people, and I got my first breakthrough into the management teaching. So that happened in 2007 with Ohio University. And till date, I am in touch with them. And that Ohio University happened after that. Many good universities happened to me. SP Jain, Dubai campus, and Istao University in Italy, Ancona, Italy. So all good things started happening.
Wonderful.
So, what happened in 2020 when there was a total shutdown? I don't know from where it came to me that I'm not going to survive. I'm not going to survive this lockdown. So what would happen if I'm not there? My story would be untold. No one would know what I have undergone. So two things happened. The first was, I started a daily live streaming. At 9:30 every day, I would come on LinkedIn and I would speak my story. It was not a live streaming, it was a recorded one. Of course, I would record in two, one in Hindi and one in English. Hindi was for my Facebook friends, and English was for my LinkedIn friends. And I started a 50 episode story called Story of My Author's Journey. And every day, 9:30, I would post it on my LinkedIn and my Facebook. And people would wait. So after one week or so, people would start pinging me, why is it not uploaded yet? What are you not posting it today? So I understood that people were getting some kind of motivation, or maybe they are getting some kind of soothing feeling after listening to my story. The only objective was to infuse some kind of hope. The idea was, it was totally locked down, our social connections are cut. So how to overcome that? And 9:30, because people by that time, they are done with their chores, cooking, cleaning, jharu, pocha, button, everything. And when they go to bed in the relaxed mode, they listen to a story of perseverance.
Wonderful.
So that one thing happened. And second, I conceptualized, if I can say my story, I'm confident enough to speak about it on the camera. I'm not camera shy. But what about those who are not so confident about facing the camera, speaking their stories on camera? They might be writing, maybe. So the Books 33 was born with the idea to give a platform to people who are not published and they want to say their story, because it is going to be documented. 50 years down the line, 100 years down the line, people would read and understand what kind of life we have lived in the first wave 2020 and COVID second wave 2021. So with that idea, I reached out to two more friends, author friends. We roped in money. We pooled in money, we roped people, and then we started this. The first book was published through Books 33 through a competition. We sourced the stories through competition. SamvaadShaalaa was always to happen. Why? Because I have been into communication all my life, and I always thought that people who can afford me, they are taking my classes, because I'm associated with all the tier A colleges, IIMs, SPJ, all the big names. But what about the people who cannot afford to reach to those colleges? Am I not for them? Because I am one of them. So with that idea, it was in the ideation stage that I'll come up with some communication platform, which would be a social enterprise, where I would be reaching out to people where communication is a biggest need. But then it got conceptualized and structured only during the COVID time.
Very nice.
So this is how SamvaadShaalaa.
So, we are way out of time. So I have time for one more question for you.
Sure.
And this is for the many, many people who will listen to our conversation. Based on your amazing journey, your own grit, your own determination, and there must be so many people who are covering up their own challenges, because, I'm sure this is going on both with men and women. What would you say are 3 lessons you want our viewers and listeners to take away, using your own journey as an inspiration?
The 3 lessons that I would like to say is failure to change the circumstances that are beyond us. Take it as a challenge.
Okay.
The second would be draw opportunities from every adversity that life blesses you with. And the third and the last would be my favorite line: drink life, sip by sip.
I beg your pardon?
Drink life, sip by sip.
Wonderful. Shalini, on that note, and your 3 amazing lessons, which is, failure to change circumstances, face it, and challenge the status quo, if I can use the term, find an opportunity in adversity, and take life sip by sip. Thank you so much for speaking to me. I mean, one of the messages that I get from you and our conversation is, it seems to be that the Champaran DNA seems to be in your blood, and you fought your way through a lot of adversity. And I'm certain, and I'm sure the life ahead, you gave me a journey in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and the 2000s, but I'm sure 2022, 2030, 2040 will be even better years for you. Thank you so much for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you. It was pleasure. It was pleasure being with you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.